Hi all, it's Rambler here with my thoughts on the Sony PlayStation 4 announcements that was made last night at a tech conference. That being that Sony are releasing a slim down version of the PlayStation 4 and the PS4 Pro, which was the name or the official name given to the PS4 Neo or PlayStation 4.5. That's been circulating for quite a few months now. I'll keep it short and brief because, to be honest with you, there's not really a lot to talk about this. I personally am not very impressed with the PS4 Pro or the PS4 Slim, and that I think it's not really what people were expecting to be, which is that it was going to be like a new type of console in terms of the fact that this was going to change the way we buy consoles forever, and that this is going to be how consoles are going to be in the future. They're just going to be upgrades every couple of years, 2 or 3 years, etc. Similar to a smartphone model, in that you know a new smartphone of a existing electronic company that sells that sort of stuff comes out every year or two. It's like Samsung and Apple and all that. I just personally think that it's not really a big deal, to be honest with you. I mean, I was actually quite relieved that it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be in terms of the actual hardware specifications. It's essentially just a beefed up PS4 with a bigger GPU, faster CPU, and that's about it. It looks a little ugly, if I must say so, but then I never really liked the original PS4 design either. However, I've come to like it as time's progressed, so maybe the design of this I'll come to like in the future. Just to let you know, I don't have a PlayStation 4 of my own. I've been borrowing my brother's recently while he was away travelling around the world, but I've given it back to him because he's come back. So has it decided, or has it made me think that, oh yes, I'll get one of those PS4 Pros and what have you, because, oh well, you know, I haven't bought a PS4. I'm in that lucky position, I suppose, where I'm not one of the 40 million odd people who own a PS4 currently, because those people, I imagine right now, are looking at this and thinking, oh, so that PS4 I've had for 3 years, if that, that I've come to love and buy games for, and it's been really good. Okay, you know, it could be considered underpowered and a bit limited, but really, ultimately, it's still a good piece of kit. I now have to go and get this Pro version. What the F? I mean, you don't have to upgrade to the Pro. It's not like, I don't think they're trying to market it as a you know, oh, you must replace your existing PS4 with this one. It's basically, I think, for people who have waited, like me, to get a PS4 because of these talks, and also the whole thing going around that because the PS4 and the Xbox One in its current form can't do 4K gaming, and they can barely do 1080p, to be honest with you, but, you know, it is what it is. But 4K is becoming the next sort of technological revelation, if you will, of televisions and what have you, and monitors and cinema screens and all that stuff. You know, if you go out and buy a 4K television or a 4K monitor, obviously you want to be able to watch movies and play games on it in 4K resolution, which is quite hard to do at this current moment in time. I mean, unless you have a really powerful gaming PC, that's obviously expensive to build and set up, and you've splashed money on the 4K monitor, you're probably the only group of people who have done that can experience 4K gaming at the moment. I have no idea what it's like, and I have no idea if it's stable or not in that current form. You know, whether it works perfectly fine, albeit I imagine the computer would get very, very hot. Maybe there's cooling mechanisms out there that have already come out to cope with that extra heat that's been produced by the computer, because 4K rendering is quite intense. Maybe it works fine, and that's fair enough. But when it comes to the home console market, obviously, you know, the consoles currently, like I said, are very underpowered for that. So this is Sony's attempt at trying to say, hey, you know, we understand the 4K thing's coming, and we understand our console's not that powered for it. So here's the PS4 Pro. And, oh, that's my mum phoning me at the moment, trying to get a lift. I better pause the recording here for a second and sort that out. I'll be back in a bit. Sorry about this. Right, that's dealt with. Sorry about that. Anyway, getting back to topic. Yeah, this is Sony's attempt at trying to say, hey, you know, this is what the PS4... You know, we're coming out with this PS4 so you can do 4K gaming and 4K whatever. And I didn't actually watch the conference, but I've heard that it was pretty boring, pretty dull, pretty long, and could have been summed up in 10 minutes. But from what I gathered from it, apparently there's a lot of speculation that this PS4 Pro is not powerful enough still to actually render gaming in native 4K resolution. It appears that this console is really only going to upscale games to a 4K resolution, but not actually render games in native 4K. So basically an upscaler machine. And I can get behind that. I mean, again, I don't know the ins and outs of 4K tech, but I believe I know that it's still pretty hard to do at a good affordable price for an average consumer. So again, unless you're got money and you're a devoted serious gamer, or can spend the money to build or buy an expensive gaming rig for that, for native 4K gaming, then yeah, it's still kind of like that at the moment. Yeah, there's a couple of issues that I do have with the PS4 that has been brought up. One, it's not going to be native 4K necessarily. We don't know, it might be. We'll see. But at the moment, people are like, is it? They didn't really specifically say. And the other thing is that the Blu-ray drive that's coming with this PS4 Pro can't support 4K Blu-rays. Yeah, apparently the Blu-ray drive in this PS4 is the same as the Blu-ray drive that's currently in the current model PS4. Why is that a big deal? Well, the Xbox One S that's just come out has a 4K Blu-ray player in it. In other words, you can put 4K Blu-rays into the Xbox One S, and if you've got a 4K television, you can watch 4K Blu-ray movies through that, no problems. And apparently I've heard it's really good. Okay, the Xbox One S can't still do 4K gaming or even upscale it to 4K, but when it comes to movies and streaming as well from the internet, it can do that. So why Sony have decided to just stick with the Blu-ray drive currently in the model that can't do 4K Blu-rays, I don't know. So again, it adds to the speculation that this PS4 Pro is just basically upscaling games and movies and streaming to 4K, but not actually be native 4K. So yeah, it to me it just seems like a half-baked, half-assed attempt at trying to stay ahead of the Xbox One. Because Microsoft have also coming out with an upgraded Xbox One, not the Xbox One S, an actual upgraded console similar to the PS4 Pro. That being, it will have a bigger GPU and a faster CPU, etc. But they've called it Project Scorpio, and if they stick to the specs they're saying that they're sticking to in terms of Microsoft and this Xbox One Scorpio, the codename for it, it's way more powerful than the PS4 Pro is ever going to be, and they are saying it will be able to do native 4K gaming. But again, even with the specs they've come up with for the Xbox One Scorpio, still people are like, I don't think that's going to be enough to do native 4K gaming, because like I said, it's extremely data intensive. So the Xbox One Scorpio isn't coming out for another year yet, and that might be because they're just finalising the design or waiting for certain components to come down in price, so that when they do build the machine and sell it to the consumer, you won't be paying an arm and a leg for it. Whereas with Sony's machine at the moment, it's actually been priced, I think, relatively well for a PS4 Pro. It's going to be retailed in the UK for £350, I believe, or $349, and I think in America it's $399. That's not too bad actually for this console. People were thinking that maybe it's going to be about £400-500, maybe upwards, if it's going to be able to do 4K gaming native resolution. But no, it's going to be quite reasonably priced, I think. I mean, it's still a lot for a small upgraded machine. And what's even more weird is that they've also announced that they're going to be introducing High Dynamic Range, which is a software codec for better colours, better shadow effects. I'm not sure if it's got something to do with sound as well. Might be wrong on that, but I know it's got something to do with colours and shadows. They're going to release a patch for all existing PS4 owners, so that PS4 games can now render things with better colours and better shadows. And apparently it's going to make some games, if not all games, look a little bit better anyway. So I don't really know what Sony's doing with this Pro console. It kind of reminds me back to the 80s a little bit, when you had Atari. When they released the 2600, the Atari 2600, it was like the mainstream console to get. And then when their rivals emerged, they had Mattel come up with the Intellivision, which was more powerful than the 2600, and then eventually the ColecoVision, amongst other consoles as well, but those are the two main competitors of Atari. They were going to release the Atari 5200, which they did, but they botched it up, as we know. But the original plan for that was that the 5200 was going to be a sort of pro version of the 2600. That being that they were still going to sell the 2600 as a basic console, but if you wanted a more powerful, upscaled console, you'd get the 5200. So they'd run both by saying, similar to this PS4 model, that you could still get the PS4 basic, and they're going to relaunch it as the slim model for Sony, and then Atari were releasing, I think, the 4-switch Atari console, 2600, I can't remember which one. They said, oh, you can still buy that, and that's still going to have games for it, but you're going to also have the option to buy the 5200, which is like an upgrade, but it's still backwards compatible with the 2600 games. Like this PS4 Pro is going to be backwards compatible with all existing PS4 games. And that didn't really work out in the 80s either. I mean, but even though back then in the 80s, especially that early 80s as well, the video game market and the video game console area was still developing. You know, nobody knew that it was going to be a console cycle like we've been used to in the last few years. You know, like every 5-10 years a new console comes out, and then every 5-10 years another new console comes out, like we've been used to for probably the last decade or so. Or maybe longer than that, probably the last 20 years, I would say. But either way, point being is nobody knew that at the time because it was early days. So it's kind of reminding me of that. And again, even back then, it didn't really do that well. Customers were confused, and consumers were like, well, I quite like my 2600. There's good games out for it. And if you're going to make more games, why should I upgrade, you know? So it ended up splintering the market and being a niche thing. But at the same time, the 5200 failed anyway because it was still underpowered to a few other consoles that were coming out ahead of it, especially the ColecoVision. The ColecoVision was what knocked it out the park. And it just didn't work. And it's kind of what's going on now, because basically what's going to happen is they release this PS4 Pro, which is coming out in November, and the Slim as well, I think. Or the Slim might be earlier. I don't know when the release date is for the Slim. Might be the same date or a bit earlier. And then Microsoft are just going to knock it out of the park with the Scorpio. And then Sony are going to be in a really weird position where they're now going to be playing catch-up or leapfrogging Microsoft. And Microsoft's going to be doing the same thing. And I've got to be honest with you, as a consumer, I don't really want that. Like, every 2 or 3 years, you've got to buy a new console now, because it's still the same console as what you had before. It's just a slightly beefier GPU or a CPU. It just seems a bit like greed, basically. Like, they're just trying to turn it into the smartphone market. Because the smartphone market makes billions and billions and billions of dollars and pounds and etc, whatever currency you can think of. It's very profitable. People are used to this model of, you know, you get a smartphone, you get it on contract, you play with it, it's the latest thing, la 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 la. Then about a year or two later, oh, we've got a new model, it's upgraded, it does this and that. Oh, great, all right, well, my contract is finished now with this phone. The contract's probably like £30-40 a month or whatever for unlimited minutes, text, internet, that stuff. Great, well, that contract's over, so I'll get rid of this phone, chuck it away, or recycle it or sell it on. I'll get the next model, and you carry it on for roughly the same price points, maybe slightly higher every year, you know, give or take extra costs and stuff. But yeah, that people are used to that. But with consoles, that's not been the case. So to try and introduce this type of business plan to consoles at this late stage in the game, I don't know. I still think the PS4 Pro is probably going to sell very well. And I think because it's coming near the Christmas period, it is going to sell well. And I might pick one up because, again, I don't have a PS4, and at £350, it's not. I personally again think that's not too bad, but I still think it's kind of a pointless piece of hardware. Personally, I think they should have just stuck with the PS4, released this HDR upgrade for it, the software patch, I should say, and then just say, yeah, we're working on the next PlayStation, the PlayStation 5, more coming soon. Or if they're going to do what Microsoft's doing, delayed it a bit to see what Microsoft's done, because Microsoft's announced their plans. Why couldn't Sony just go, oh, okay, well, we'll delay the Neo to beef it up even more, and then just delay it with, you know, Microsoft and Sony just go back and forth until eventually they go, oh, it's been 5 or 10 years or however long this cycle's been, us just basically, you know, playing ball with Microsoft. Neither one of us are going to release this upgraded console. We might as well just call it the PS5 or the Xbox 2 or whatever the bloody name say the next Xbox console is going to be, if there is one. Same with the PS4. You know, you never know. This could be the very last console generation, but I don't know. I don't think so personally. But then again, I'm an older generation gamer. You know, the newer generation's coming in. You know, they're new to all this. The younger gamers, they'll be looking at this going, oh my god, that's so awesome. So it may be a generational shift that eventually consoles, as we know it, will fade out. Not be taken away, but faded out in favour of this new upgraded hardware system. And I personally won't be supporting that. Personally, I'll be like, well, I'll just stick to PC. You know, that'll be what I'll do. But keep my retro games and keep collecting retro consoles and stuff, and try and find a way to do Let's Plays of those on the internet in good quality. That's what I'd like to do. And leave it at that, just because I'm an older generation. That's just not what I'm used to, and I think it's a bit greedy. So yeah, I really don't get Sony's point in all this, other than the fact that if you're like me who haven't bought a PS4 yet, this may not be a bad idea to splash out on one, personally. I think 350 quid for one, you think, okay, well, it's still not cheaper, but it's if it's better and it's going to have better games on it, then I might as well. And do it that way. But for people who are owning PS4s currently, the existing 40 million people, I can't see them just going, yeah, okay, no problem, Sony, I'll just get rid of this PS4, yoink, and I'll buy this new one for minimal upgrades for the same 350 quid 2 or 3 years down the line. Yay! I can't see that happening. So I think it will sell well, but I would be very surprised and shocked if it sold as well as the PS4 in the same 3-year time span. So if we gave this PS4 Pro 3 years like the PS4 has, and it sells around 40 million, if not more, I would be surprised. But personally, I only think it's only going to sell a very niche amount. It's going to be similar, I think, to the Nintendo 3DS, the new 3DS, when they upgraded the hardware that way. I still haven't seen any 3DS games that have come out recently that say, yeah, it makes use of the new 3DS hardware. Current 3DS games that are coming out now, like new 3DS games, not for the new 3DS, but just 3DS in general, they're all backwards compatible with the 3DS and the 2DS. They make a point of that on the boxes. So, yeah, point? Really? I just think it's a bit of an experiment and a bit of a gamble, but personally, I don't think it's going to backfire on Sony, but I don't think it's going to be as successful as they think. And then when the Scorpio comes out with Xbox, if they stick with the specs that they're going to come with and it comes out next year, then yeah, it's going to put Sony in a big confuzzle. It's going to put them in a bit of a corner, and it's going to put them in a big dilemma, basically. It's going to rock the boat. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, yeah, if you know, it's not bad, but excuse me. If you've got a PS4, do you know what? Save your money. Wait and see what this Xbox One Scorpio is going to be like. Don't go out and rush and buy one unless you really want to. I mean, if you think, yeah, I've got to have the latest tech, I've got to have the latest gaming thing, I'm curious, by all means go and get it. I won't judge you for it, you do it. But if you're a bit unsure, or you're a bit on the bench like me, or you currently own a PS4, don't bother. Just save your money, save that 350 quid, get some more games on your current PS4. It's still a good machine, it's still capable of amazing things. And wait and see what this Xbox One Scorpio is going to be like. And then if that turns out to be absolutely incredible and really does knock the ball out of the park and is essentially really Microsoft's next Xbox console, which personally I think it is, they're just disguising it, save your money and put it towards that and just call that the next generational shift. But it's up to you. What do you think about the PS4 Pro and the slim PS4? By the way, don't buy a slim PS4 either if you haven't got a PS4 or you've already owned a PS4. Don't bother. Slim PS4 is just absolutely pointless. Don't. Yeah, what do you think about the PS4 Pro? Do you think Sony have done this right? Do you think they've messed it up a bit? Do you think they've actually got it right and it's perfect? If you're a currently existing PS4 owner, are you going to go out and buy one? If you're a non-PS4 owner like me, are you going to go out and get one, or are you going to wait and hold on and see? We'll see. Either way, can I say thank you very much for listening to my ramble. Take it easy, have a good one. Hope you're well, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.